So what is the energy body? All life forms have an energy body along with the physical body. When discussing the atom, I had mentioned that all integrated systems, whether an atom or a life form, have a material body along with a spatial body, one which is composed of the substance of space. This spatial body, the body composed of the substance of space, cannot be identified under a microscope. If we want to move along to the next level of understanding the universe, we have to come to terms with the notion that this seemingly empty stuff all around us is actually a substance whose characteristics are opposed to those of matter. Now, if an atom, which is composed of both these substances, represents a fundamental integrated unit of matter, then a cell represents a fundamental integrated unit of life. When life emerges, that spatial component within the atom becomes the energy body in the cell. And of course, being structureless, neither of them can be identified under a microscope. But whereas the atom remains a compression-dominant system, the cell becomes an expansion-dominant system. Expansion dominance is the defining signature of life. But here is an important fact. In either case, whether in the atom or in the cell, the infusion of energy and awareness via the singularity unit occurs through the spatial body alone. It doesn't touch the structural body. The role of the energy body in life is intricate and elaborate. In a very real sense, our energy body truly defines who we are, while a physical body remains in a constant state of flux from birth to death. In all animals, it is the energy body which survives when the physical body dissipates at death. However, before we get into an explanation of death and what it is, I want to discuss the shift in consciousness from its dormant state in matter to its activated state in life. So let's talk about consciousness. Contrary to our general assumption, consciousness is not generated within our biology. Awareness is an inherent feature within singularity from where it continually streams like electricity to inform all aspects of the universe, whether it's matter, space, or life. When the unified awareness from singularity is processed through the structures of the universe, it expresses itself as distinct forms of consciousness. I have a detailed explanation of consciousness in another YouTube video titled "What is Consciousness?", which explains where it originates and how it informs us. So here I will focus exclusively on the shift of consciousness from matter consciousness to life consciousness. And yes, there is such a thing as matter consciousness, and it plays a vital role in maintaining the continuity of the universe from one moment to the next. When awareness from singularity streams through matter, it becomes matter consciousness. Matter consciousness bifurcates into registration consciousness and temporal consciousness. Now, in the Fractal Bifurcations model, the entire universe exists one moment at a time. Each moment exists for one Planck moment, which is around a trillionth of a second. And that moment disappears, the next moment comes in, and one after another after another. So it's a string of single moments that make up the universe. So in a ceaselessly expanding and evolving universe, registration consciousness plays the vital role of registering the specifications of each particle at each Planck moment. And then temporal consciousness takes over, and it transferring all of that information to the next Planck moment, and so on and so on and so on. Together, these two forms of matter consciousness preserves the continuity of the universe from one moment to the next and the next. These two fundamental forms of consciousness established in matter become the foundation upon which life consciousness builds after life emerges. The function of registration consciousness is to register all the information of every particle at each moment, and the function of temporal consciousness is to transfer that information to the next moment. That process is vital for maintaining the continuity of the universe from one moment to the next. So there is consciousness within an atom, which is the basic unit of matter, but with a memory, with a temporal extension that is so brief that it is measured in trillionths of a second. And also consciousness in matter is restricted to the size of an atom. So consciousness in matter functions in a completely dormant state. These fundamental traits of consciousness within matter, which are registration consciousness and temporal consciousness, become the foundation upon which life consciousness is based. A life form, being an expansion-dominant system, is designed to expand consciousness from birth to death and from one life to the next. According to Fractal Bifurcations, the entire evolutionary journey of life is and has been all about a systematic transformation of consciousness from one stage to the next. All the animals and all the species that exist today or has ever existed in the past represent specific niches of consciousness in this transformative journey. The animal form merely provides the template through which awareness, continually streaming in from singularity, expresses itself as consciousness. The infusion of awareness from singularity into the energy body and the physical body expresses consciousness in radically different ways, each vital to our existence. The energy body consciousness provides an integrated form of consciousness, while the physical body provides our cognitive consciousness. The energy body, with its integrated form of consciousness, is responsible for orchestrating those millions, if not billions, of electrochemical reactions occurring throughout our body at every moment through the autonomic nervous system. Any referential system requires some kind of consciousness. So if some part of a body is connecting with another part of a body, it is the act of an integrated consciousness, which is exactly what the energy body provides. Understanding the energy body is also key to understanding how our mind works. But I have restricted myself to focus only on the shift of consciousness from matter to life. As I had mentioned earlier, there's a perfectly constant and steady infusion of energy from singularity into the universe, which is reflected in the constancy of the speed of light. This infusion only affects the spatial medium, whether it is the free space all around us or the spatial field within the photon or the atom or the energy body within the life form. Even though the amount of energy infused from singularity into our three-dimensional universe is always a constant, the expansion causes a steady reduction in the tension holding the spatial field together. That is why space appears to be expanding with a slight but steady acceleration, which is recognized today as dark energy. And it is for the same reason that life forms grow and change from birth to death at a perfectly steady rate. The infusion of energy into the energy body is actually the life force which sustains life. So let me explain the Fractal Bifurcations perspective on the life force. We have all accepted the notion that life forms grow from the moment they are born because they ingest nutrients from the environment. That much is true, but there is an essential step missing along the way. Initially, it is the constant infusion of energy into the energy body which makes it expand, and that expansion compels the physical body to play catch-up. So, from infancy to maturity, the physical body grows, keeping pace with the energy body. After the life form arrives at complete maturity, it is no longer able to grow any further. However, the expansion of the energy body is ceaseless because it is a universal expansion force. So once the body arrives at complete maturity, it is no longer able to cope with such a ceaseless expansion. It begins to gradually shut down or rigidify to offset the demands of the perpetually expanding energy body. That shutting down procedure is reflected in the physical body as aging, which continues all the way until eventually the connecting link between the physical body and the energy body becomes severed. That marks the death of the individual life form, and the energy body is released from the confines of the physical body. So, what was once the physical body dissipates, but where does the energy body go after death? Well, the structureless energy body slides into the structureless domain of the substance of space. There it undergoes an assimilation process not unlike our sleeping and waking cycles. It is an assimilation of the experiences from the life it had just gone through. And then comes the preparatory phase, which readies the energy body for the next incarnation. Before I go any further, I have to address this important issue. Where does this immortal energy body come from? After all, there was a time when this planet was a molten mass with no room for immortal souls. Well, this immortal nature of the energy body was a truly remarkable evolutionary adaptation that occurred some 550 million years ago. Life has been on this planet for close to 4 billion years, not long after the planet itself came into existence. For much of this time, life functioned at the microbial level with very little evolutionary transformation. But all that changed around 550 million years ago at the onset of the Cambrian era. During this time, there was an evolutionary shift that completely changed the way life functioned and evolved on this planet. This was when microbial life became animal life. And the remarkable adaptation was this. When microbial life died, both the physical body as well as the energy body fell apart and dissipated. That is why evolution in the Precambrian was tediously slow. 3 billion years with very little change. However, when an animal died, only the physical body dissipated because the energy body found a way to retain its integrity at the collapse of the physical body. This was the most significant adaptation in evolution since first life. And this occurred at the onset of the Cambrian era some 550 million years ago. So the energy body began to assume form over and over again from one incarnation to the next. And most importantly, the energy body learned to retain the gains from each life phase at the energetic level, which were then assimilated during the death phase, not unlike what happens during our waking and sleeping cycles. Life and the evolutionary process for the first time became individualized, and the energy body was able to build upon the transformations achieved from one life to the next and the next. The life phase began to be dominated by the physical body and the death phase by the energy body. This alternation and individualization set off an evolutionary race for survival that led to an explosive proliferation of life everywhere on the planet. This is known in evolutionary biology as the Cambrian explosion. So you can see that the emergence of life out of the substance of matter was not some random accident of chemistry facilitated by lightning bolts from the sky. There was actually a constellation of adaptations that had to occur for matter to become life. The root cause behind the inability of our sciences and philosophies to understand the origin of life lies in their failure to recognize that singularity not only did not disappear with the Big Bang, but plays a vital role in sustaining the universe with a constant infusion of energy and awareness through its entire duration, from the Big Bang to the universe's eventual demise. In the theory of fractal bifurcations, awareness is the prime instigator within singularity for spawning universes, and its structured expression consciousness is literally the soul of the universe. So life, far from being an accident of chemistry, is actually an integral part of the cosmic agenda. And what is the cosmic agenda? It is simply that this higher dimensional and structureless domain of singularity is in an eternal quest for self-realization, and it accomplishes that by giving birth to structured universes in lower dimensional configurations, one after another. And then it processes all aspects of each universe by infusing them with a ceaseless stream of consciousness. The objective is to transform consciousness, initially through the substance of matter, and then through the evolution of life, back to the state of singularity from where it once began at the Big Bang. Each full cycle represents one complete understanding of this particular universe. This can be accomplished at the individual level, at the planetary level, as well as a stellar level. And this is an idea I will expand upon in the following video on the evolution of consciousness. There are countless stellar systems across the universe that has managed to propagate life, and all evolving to the same eventual destination of singularity consciousness. So we as life forms are the foot soldiers of singularity's eternal quest for self-realization. Many of these ideas I've just mentioned are flushed out in much greater detail in my first book, The Sentient Universe, which begins with the birth of singularity and closes with the emergence of life out of the substance of matter. Once you understand the basic concepts in the theory of fractal bifurcations, you will have no doubt that we are all embedded within a universe that is truly alive and sentient.